I'm the bad guy. I'm the, I'm the, I'm the bad.
Hello and welcome back to part two of Across the Gridiron. So, Eddie, what we'll do now is let's talk about some of the other games. Sort of the two key games we wanted to touch on. So let's look at the real big game of the weekend in this winner takes all match in the NFC North, which was the Minnesota Vikings at the Detroit Lions. Now, both teams went into this game with a 14-2 record, so therefore the winner was going to take the first seed in the NFC, with the loser taking fifth. And Eddie, it wasn't even close at the end, was it? The Lions roaring to a 31-9 victory and condemning the Vikings to having the beating the team, sorry, with the most wins for a wild card game, a wild card team, sorry, in league history. So, how did you see this one, Eddie? The Lions really showed that grit of theirs, didn't they?
Absolutely wild. And the Lions just are just big bullies. That's all I can think about. I can just they just went into that game and they were like, we were not going to lose this game. And for me, they played slightly very different. It was more like a running show. Jahmyr Gibbs was like every time you look, he was busting for 10, 15
Hmm.
yards.
Game of his life, wasn't it?
He was the game of his life. Three touchdowns, absolutely unbelievable. Dan Campbell does Dan Campbell things, went up for it, fought down on so many occasions, got a couple of them as well. This was a classic game of, both teams. If you turn on the TV and you were watching the game, and then you watch it up onto the red zone, and then you left, you would think that was a tie game because they were going up and down the field each time they had possession. But for the Vikings, it seemed like once they got to the red zone, they forgot how to cash it in. This was a classic game of everything that you wanted to go wrong from scoring a touchdown went wrong. Players were dropping passes in the end zone. People were having misreads. The balls were just going over players. The kicker forgot his kicking boots. Somehow just thought, oh, maybe, I don't know what it was. Maybe he kind of forgot that he was going for a game. Missed a couple of field goals. They couldn't score a touchdown. And if you think of a team that has got Justin Jefferson in there, and that team is not capable of scoring a touchdown, they took the worst time to play their worst football. Now, maybe for the Vikings, they might be thinking to themselves, maybe let's get this sort of bad game out of our system, before going into the playoffs. But if they play like that again, they'll be one and done.
Well, that was going to be my question on the Vikings is was how damaging do you think this result could be? I mean, the defense, as you said, the defense gave them a chance,
Yeah.
right? It's 31-9. It sounds like a pretty much a blowout victory, but as you said, it was very much back and forth. But they just couldn't get it going off offensively. Now we have praised Sam Darnold to the highest this year. He's a guy who could even have been in the MVP
Yeah, I
conversation.
talked about him in the MVP.
Yeah, absolutely, and he's had a fantastic season. When you have these kind of defeats and against a divisional rival who are going into this game absolutely identical record, it can work one or two ways. As you said, it could be show like we've had this bad performance now. We're not going to do this again. But conversely, it could be okay, well, we get it done against the real big teams,
Yeah,
right? If they want to get to Super Bowl, they're going to have to go through Detroit again.
yeah.
They're going to have to go through Detroit in Detroit again, right? So it's not the end of the world because they have still got through.
Mm.
They have come fifth in be a fifth seed. They're going to have to play a couple of away games now if they want to get through. Is this going to be a confidence and morale sapping defeat, do you reckon, or do you think it's more likely to be okay, well done?
History, it makes me one worry for them because You like to get into the playoffs hot, right? And not all defeats are the same, right? I mean, we were talking about the Bills and the rest of their starters. You look at the Chiefs, they scored 0 points, against the Broncos. But not all defeats are the same, especially when you have your full team out there. It would have been different if there were a couple of backups, that played in the game. And then you're sort of thinking, okay, they're putting their backups, and all of that. But you would have thought they wanted the bye. Everybody wants that week of rest, to allow your players to heal up, and you can you miss one game, and then all you need to do is play one game and you're in the championship, the conference championship. So I think, it's not a case that they didn't want to win that game. Now, to be fair to the Vikings, I did hear stories around Aaron Jones being injured, before that game. And you could see he wasn't as effective as he was, typically in the game. And maybe that's the one thing, but that also will worry as well if you're only depending on Aaron Jones to get you a spark. I think what happened in that game was Dan Campbell had a perfect game plan, and the Vikings got their game plan wrong. I think they got their game plan wrong. And you would think that they would have learned from this and say, well, we're going to go to the playoffs now. It's sudden death. You can't afford to make mistakes. So we've got to bring our best plays, of the whole season, wrap that up together and put that on in the next game because, I think this team is too talented to waste what has been a really phenomenal season. The problem with losing like this is that you don't really have another set of games to fix things. You're almost like, you learn a lot when you lose, but do you have enough time to correct it before that next game? That now there's going to be pressure added on it. It's not like you're playing another regular season game, which was why we're talking about the Chiefs getting their loss a little bit earlier on in the season, because you want to get that out of the way and then figure out how you can fix things. But then you play the next game without that pressure that this is a do or die situation. So I worry about the Vikings. I've got a mate who's also a Vikings fan, and I'm sure he'll be, watching this and thinking, what is going on. But they've got to buckle up, or else they'll be in the same place as I am, at home.
Ranting about the Philadelphia Eagles. So yeah, I mean, I think it'll be tough for them. I think it's never great losing to a divisional rival, but losing in that manner with potentially so much on the line, they're going to have to regroup for the playoffs. But let's end this on just another quick word on the Lions. I mean, what they have done this season with the amount of injuries that they've had, the fact that they've had this such a phenomenal season. The question, I suppose, is they are the top seed. They've got this bye. Do you see them as the Super Bowl contenders in the NFC?
I think without a shadow of doubt, I know Eagles will want to say something about that, and this is not my Eagles bias,
We'll wait. We'll wait. Well, let's put it. We'll talk about these when we have our playoff preview. You can rant about the Eagles then, Eddie. Yes, that's.
But I think you can dismiss what they've done. They've won games where they've thrown 5 interceptions. When they've lost the turnover battle. They've won games on the ground, just running the ball. They've won games throwing the ball. So I think what the Lions have shown is that they've found different ways of winning, and they have a coach that is transmitting so much energy. Dan Campbell reminds me of Jose Mourinho in his hair days, for us, in football, where he sort of transmits this energy to the players where they feel like, they can do anything, you know. Um, and I think that that might just be the effect that the Lions have, and I won't be surprised if I see them in the Super Bowl.
Absolutely, certainly the strong favourites. No one's gonna want to go there, but everyone's gonna have to go there to Detroit if they want to get the Super Bowl themselves. let's move on now to the sort of next game or the final game we're going to discuss in detail, and that's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers,
Yeah.
who beat the New Orleans Saints 27-19 to clinch their place in the NFC playoffs. So one of the key things for me here, Eddie, was the fact that they went into halftime 16-6 down. So they only gave up another 3 points in the second half. They really clawed their way back into this, and they used the ground game in the second half incredibly effectively. You know, you had running back Bucky Irvin finishing on 89 yards with a touchdown. Baker Mayfield was scrambling for yards as well as passing for 221 yards and a pair of touchdowns. But we're going to talk about the incentive stuff in the next part. But really, the day belonged to Mike Evans, who got a nice little 9 yard reception in the final play of the game to match the Hall of Famer Jerry Rice's record for the longest streak of 1,000 yard seasons. So, all in all, this marks the Bucs' fourth consecutive divisional crown. They're also now the only NFC team to reach the playoffs in each of the last 5 seasons. So, phenomenal record for them. What were your thoughts on this one, Eddie?
I love this game. This game was very wholesome. It was like watching, that Christmas movie, where everyone is kind of sat around and the story has got a happy ending. There's Christmas carols singing in the background. You've got your pudding, your ice cream, and all of those classic stuff. This was that kind of game. It was a hard-fought game, by the Bucs against the Saints, but it had such a fitting ending. And I don't want anyone, people talk about Baker Mayfield and they talk about his experiences at the Browns and what he obviously went to, I think where he went to the Patriots, or so, and it was just looking like he was a disaster until he found a home. Right. And maybe he should have saved a lot of those commercials he was doing when he was at the Browns to when he got to the Bucs, because I feel like this really feels like home for him. He's playing like it. He's playing like he's got the respect of his teammates. He's playing like he's got the trust of the coach. And, he's showing that he's an actual decent human being. He actually talked about this before the game, about the fact that Mike Evans was going to be part of the plan, going into that game, because, everybody knows about the incentive. And we'll talk about that in the next segment. But I think, what the team did, especially honoring a player like that, just shows you the sort of class that the team had. And I think there'll be a lot of guys rooting for the Bucs just because of that moment last weekend.
Yeah, it was great. It was great to see. You know, Mike Evans especially has been a fantastic servant of the franchise. It was great for him to get his moment, and they go into the playoffs again in good form.
Yeah.
You know, so Baker Mayfield, we've talked about again a number of times. He and also Sam Darnold was a great moment there for Mike Evans. It's great that they were able to do that for someone who is such a long servant to the franchise for him to get that moment. And yeah, they go into the playoffs in good form. You know, not many people are going to want to play them. And again, they were only playing the Saints. But again, this shows that they can go behind and they've got different ways of winning. And again, we've talked about Mayfield a couple times on the podcast, and I think it's great to see. And I think him as well as the likes of Sam Darnold, it goes to show that you should not judge a rookie QB by his first couple seasons or by the first team he plays for necessarily, because not everybody is going to have an absolutely outstanding season. Because I said quarterbacks, if you're a rookie QB, you're generally in a team who aren't doing that well, especially if you're a high pick. And sometimes they need to move on to a better organization, a better run organization to have that moment. I mean, when Baker Mayfield got drafted by the Browns, they were a hot mess of an organization,
Yeah.
right? And obviously he suffered for that. Yes, then he moved around the leagues and he was maybe tagged potentially with this hothead, not going to make it, backup QB, that's going to be his career. But no, he's found a home in Tampa Bay and he's really, that organization reaping the benefits of believing in him and giving him that chance. And I think it's great to see. Um, So yeah, I mean, so they obviously I've said they go into the playoffs quite hard. I mean, where do you think they sort of sit in the NFC? Do you think we talked about that the Lions are now clearly the team to beat, but where do you see the Bucs in this conversation?
Listen, I don't expect them to go very, very far. I don't think that they have, the weapons, to get to a conference. But I don't think you can write them off, to win one playoff game. I think they're probably going to be playing the Commanders, in their wild card game, and I think that's a team that they're well matched with. I think that those are two teams that, you can flip a coin, and any one of those teams, can get through. I give them a chance to at least win one playoff game, but I don't think that they've got the firepower to go very far.
I think that's a fair shout. I think that's a fair shout. Yeah, before we end this part, I just think we should, and it's not quite, we don't have it in the running order already, but I think we should probably give a shout out to Denver Broncos.
Yeah.
Fantastic result against, albeit the Kansas City B squad, led by
They
Carson
cannot do
Wentz.
this without the Chiefs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They rested all their first team players essentially. They were done. They had the bye week sewed up. They didn't need to play these guys. The home sat out or the big play sat out. But for a team who haven't been in the playoffs since 2015, led by a rookie QB, yes, they're playing the Kansas City Chiefs. Sorry, they're playing the B squad, but they are still playing the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
And you've got the Cardinals, you've got it was the Cardinals, and you've got the Dolphins breathing down your neck, waiting for you to slip up,
Yeah.
and they just come in and blitz them, blow
Yeah.
them out. But was it 38 to nothing or 33 to nothing? Fantastic performance by them. Great to see the Denver Broncos get into the playoffs. Great for Bo Nix. It's great to have a rookie QB, pulling up
Yeah.
those trees as well, even if it's at the expense of my beloved Miami Dolphins. But I said before, I didn't think the Dolphins don't deserve to get into the playoffs. But I think we should give them the Broncos a shout because let's be honest, they're playing the Bills next. They're unlikely to go any further than this. So I think we should give them their flowers for at least getting into the playoffs.
It is. It is just kind of one of those things where you know that your time is up. It's like when you're watching that movie and the hero knows that his time is up. And it's like he knows, okay, you guys just go, just go. I'll stand here and try and fight off the bad guys, but I'm not gonna make this out alive. But yeah, the Broncos, for me, I thought I enjoyed the game. I watched their game. Bo Nix was great. Sutton was great. I'm going to touch on him in the next segment. But at the end of the day, I think it was a wholesome moment, for a rookie quarterback. They've got 10 wins. They haven't had 10 wins, in forever. I think the last time they had 10 wins probably when Peyton Manning was there.
Hmm.
And we're talking about what, 2016 or thereabout, so that's a long time. Have a rookie quarterback come in and do that. I thought, all, congratulations around, to everyone involved. But I'm going to ask you a question about your Dolphins, though. I know we're talking about the Broncos, but did you hear what Tyreek Hill said? Um, what do you make of that? In terms of him, being out and wanting to leave and all of that.
And that's all we have time for in part two of a yeah. Yeah, I read that this morning. It was yeah, not great. It's not what you want to hear. It's been a frustrating season for him. It's been a
Yeah,
frustrating season for the organization. He and pretty much all the offense was so better and so much more dangerous when Tua was on the field.
yeah,
Right. Tua wasn't on the field for long enough. The fact that he's come out and he thinks that he wants to do what's best for his family. He wants to do what's best for his career. Look, fine. This is a guy who he wanted to leave the Chiefs because he didn't think he was getting enough for the
Yeah,
ball,
yeah,
and he is one of the best wide receivers in the league. I think whatever the Dolphins would be weaker without him, and I think any team would be stronger with him. I hope he stays, but at the end of the day, it'll just if he goes, it'll be next one up. We would need to find some more weapons, whether that's in the draft, whether that's in free agency, whether or we trade for someone. You never want to hear. I think as a fan base, you never like to hear somebody come out and criticize. You've had a bad defeat to end a bad season, and I think everybody knows that. No one likes to lose to the Jets. The Dolphins don't like to use that. No one likes to lose to bloody Aaron Rodgers.
yeah.
Um, so I think that it's a bit classless. I think in a lot of players to come out and say they've just suffered a defeat and said, right, I want to move. Now I think he has come back on Twitter and sort of clarified that he loves the Finns Nation and all that stuff. But yeah, it wasn't a great look.
He's doing the moonwalk, with his Michael Jackson shoes. Um, yeah, it was disappointing. It looked emotional. It looked rash. It looked that sort of thing of I haven't made the Pro Bowl this season. So I'm just gonna lash it out on everyone. And I know he's made the Pro Bowl every single year and always had 1,000 yard season. That
Hmm.
wasn't quite the case. But this is what it means by being part of a team, right? Sometimes it doesn't go very well, as a team. And you just gotta say, well, we'll learn from this. If I were him, it would be a case, well, this is not what we thought our season was gonna look like. We look at the guys in the locker room, we played for each other, it hasn't gone the way that we wanted. We will learn from this, we'll come back stronger, and we will take this, team to where it's supposed to be. That's the sort of thing you kind of say, and you just, put a bit of class. So yeah, I'm with you.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of coming back stronger, let's leave it there for part two, and we will be back in part three where Eddie wants to talk about incentives and bonuses and probably go on a bit of a rant. So we will see you on the other side.
I'm the bad guy. I'm the